Coda, the establishment of silence. This chapter is about a single mechanism operating at multiple scales, how concentrated power uses silence, diplomatic, editorial, institutional, to avoid accountability. We have seen this mechanism throughout this book. In tax codes shaped by those who benefit from them. In public services withdrawn without explanation. In charitable structures that serve wealth while claiming to serve the public good. The mechanism is always the same. No single actor designs the outcome, but the direction of the pressure is consistent, and consistent pressure over decades produces the same result as design. This chapter traces that same mechanism outward, to the international order, to the courts that powerful states help build and then ignore, to the media conglomerates that consolidate editorial control while performing the gestures of independence. The examples are different. The pattern is not. When Prime Minister Carney stood at Davos and invoked Thucydides, the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. He was describing a world in which powerful states increasingly ignore the rules they themselves helped write. He was right to name it, but the same logic that operates between states operates within them, through institutions that go quiet when the truth is inconvenient for the powerful. Silence, it turns out, is not neutral. It is a form of complicity. And it operates the same way whether the subject is an international arrest warrant, a corporate tax avoidance structure, or the editorial priorities of a newspaper owned by private equity. When the strong ignore the rules, they wrote the post-war international order was built on a premise that certain rules on sovereignty, on the conduct of war, on the protection of civilians, would apply to all nations, including powerful ones. International courts were established. Treaties were signed. Institutions were built. That premise is now visibly fraying. In 2023, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin, citing the unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children. Putin has continued to travel internationally, attend summits, and receive heads of state, with ICC member states declining to arrest him. That is a troubling gap between rule and enforcement. But in January 2026, the same mechanism revealed itself in a starker and more unambiguous form. On January 3, 2026, the United States military launched Operation Absolute Resolve, airstrikes on Venezuelan military infrastructure in and around Caracas, followed by a special forces raid that forcibly removed incumbent Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro from his country at gunpoint. Maduro and his wife were flown to New York and arraigned in Manhattan federal court 2 days later. The Trump administration described the operation as a law enforcement action. Legal scholars from Cambridge, Stanford, Yale, and Chatham House described it as something else. A clear violation of Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The UN Secretary General said the operation constituted a dangerous precedent. The non-aligned movement, representing 125 nations, condemned it at an Emergency Security Council session. Professors of international law on multiple continents used a single word to describe it: illegal. The U.S. government's defense rested on two arguments. First, that Maduro was an illegitimate leader, his 2024 election widely regarded as fraudulent. Second, that Venezuela had enabled narco-terrorism threatening American security. Neither argument, legal experts noted, provides justification under the UN Charter for a unilateral military operation against a sovereign state. What made the episode particularly instructive, for a book about how power shapes the rules it then operates under, was what happened next. Trump announced the United States would run the country of Venezuela until a judicious transition could be arranged. Within weeks, a $300 million oil deal was struck with Venezuela's remaining government. Venezuelan law was amended to give private companies control over oil production. U.S. sanctions on Venezuelan oil trade were lifted. The stated rationale was justice. The documented result was oil.